Call this meeting of the Fremont County Commissioners to order. Today we have with us Luke Kennedy from Vineyard Canyon City to offer our morning invocation. Thank you, sir.
Jesus, thank you for this day and for this county and for these leaders that you've put in authority over us. God, we trust you. We trust you with this county, and we ask that you would guide and direct our leaders throughout this meeting and throughout this new year, Lord. Bless them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Please join us for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Completely around.
Thank you, Luke.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Grantham.
Here.
Commissioner McFall.
Present.
Commissioner Bell.
Present.
County Attorney Jackson. Oh, never mind. County Manager, Interim County Manager Childs.
Here.
Planning and Zoning Director Victoria.
Present.
Now we move to the item number 5, the approval of the agenda. If there are no changes or anything.
I know of no changes, Mr. Chair. I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Commissioner McFall.
Aye.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. We'll make note that there are no public hearings being scheduled in this consent agenda. And we are adding a resolution number to the statement of purposes of the Florence Fire Protection District, which we needed to do back on the 10th, and we're taking care of it now. Anything else on that? If not, I'll take a motion.
Nothing I'm aware of. With that, Mr. Chair, I move to approve today's consent agenda as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. All, sorry. Roll call.
Wrong meeting.
Wrong meeting.
All in roll call.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Commissioner McFall.
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Now we move to our administrative and informational section of the agenda. First is the sales and use tax report by Mr. Sean Sutton, our budget and finance officer. Mr. Sutton.
Morning.
Morning, Sean.
Morning, all. So I'd like to start with the retail sales tax collection report for Fremont County. For November, totaled $820,668, which was $160,239 more than November 2021. Year to date, we've collected $8,212,918, which is $1,291,950 more than the 2022 budget. In addition, we've collected $531,961 more than 2021. Obviously, a very strong month, relating a lot of this to the rise in cost of goods, other inflationary factors that not only Fremont County seeing the rest of the nation as well. It also appears that our community and other tourists are shopping locally, maybe for the Christmas and holiday season. So a strong month overall. The auto use tax collection report for December totaled $102,404, which was $12,148 more than 2021. Total collections for the year were $1,472,169. This was $44,842 less than 2021. However, due to our conservative revenue approach during our budgeting period, we are $280,455 ahead of budget. A lot of factors were taken into account, and a lot of it, when Sunny was here, she said just 2021 was probably not sustainable. based on the numbers of close to 1.2 million for 2018 through 2020. So we did ratchet that back a little bit, and it appears to be a good move. Lodging tax for November 2022 totaled $19,005, which was $16,243 more than November 2021. This is an off month, typically collect quarterly. So we do collect in December a quarterly report. We're slightly behind at $18,380 as compared to 2021. However, the $271,788 that we've collected outpaces 18, 19, and 20.
Wow.
Sheriff retail sales tax collection totaled $547,112, which was $106,826 more than November 2021. Year-to-date, we've collected $5,475,279, which again outpaces budget at $816,714 and outpaces 2021 by $354,634. Final report is sheriff auto use sales tax collection for December totaled $68,404, which was $8,233 more than 2021. Year-to-date, we've collected $1,005,977, which was $5,364 less than 2021. However, again, due to the conservative budget, we're $211,355 ahead of goal. Moving into 2023, obviously, we've had a very successful 2022. Based on this report, the auto use tax, and hopefully dealerships getting in some newer vehicles, these numbers could rebound. But we'll look to see if the new kind of, and this report specifically, you know, we've topped $1 million each of the last 2 years, and we'll just see if we can't do that again. Questions?
Just so folks know that it looks like for our sales tax, retail sales tax, as well as the lodging tax, we should have final numbers for 2022 next month. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Just kind of beating the dead horse on the 2021 numbers. We mention it quite frequently in here, but they are that aberration that it's going to prove to be at least the aberration in our numbers. But taking that trend line from 18, 19, and 20 and drawing it up through 22, we're probably going to be right in line with where we should be on all of these, including on the lodging tax. And it's all pretty similar. So otherwise, things are looking pretty good for us revenue-wise. So appreciate it, Sean. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Move now to our county manager report. Tammy Childs.
Morning.
Morning.
Good
Morning.
morning.
Just a couple things this morning. We're currently accepting bids. 2 weeks ago, I reported that we're getting ready to do a request for bids for the airport drainage project. Now we're actually accepting bids through February 14th. I believe the walkthrough is scheduled for February 7th. There's currently 8 job postings in the county. Go to our website if you're interested in applying for any of our jobs. If you've been in the admin building lately, you're going to notice there's a lot of remodeling and shuffling going around right now. The treasurer's office is currently located upstairs in room 207 until their remodel is done. It's looking really good in there if you haven't taken a peek. As well as in the lower lobby or lower level, we have the IT area that's being remodeled. It's coming along at a pretty rapid pace now, so we're excited about getting them the space that they need for all of their employees. That is it for now.
Okay. I notice you have our new intern is, if you have not heard, that fella down there is our new incoming county manager, Tony Carochi. Welcome, Tony. Thank you. So, anything for Tammy? Nothing. How about from either of you?
I also was simply going to note that we do have Tony sitting here with us today. We are working on a transition plan, and I think we are as excited as he is for him to get in here and going, but no one is quite as excited as Tammy is to retire once again from Fremont County. So.
Yeah, I got just a couple of quick things. We are all three going to be in Denver Thursday and Friday at Colorado Counties Incorporated, where we go over legislative bills that have already been dropped and take a position as far as Colorado Counties is concerned on those bills. This legislative session has started off, and it's getting scarier by the moment, if you ask me. There's going to be a lot of bills that we're watching going through. I think Commissioner Grantham's going to talk about some. There's a proposed gun bill legislation that goes way, way, way too far. It's going to make law-abiding citizens criminals in some aspects, and not do anything about the fact of mental health and the people that are causing the damage with the tool that they're using, which happens to be a weapon. So I'll be watching these and many, many other bills that are going to affect the counties and residents of these counties, and it's just kind of a scary time right now. So those of you that are interested, keep watch on those, and feel free to reach out to the legislators yourself and express your opinions on those, because I guarantee you we will be. And just a quick reminder, we're still under stage 1 fire restrictions. We've gotten a little moisture, but it's still really, really dry out there, so be very careful when you're out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Yeah, just to reiterate on the legislative session this year, there's plenty to be worried about when it comes to our what's going to happen to us here in Fremont County and across the state. One of the bills that is proposed is being titled the Fair Workweek Employment Standards Act. It's basically going to attack our service industry across the state, in Fremont County in particular. Say service industry, I generally am referring to restaurants in that segment of our economy. It will do several things that will be harmful, next to impossible, honestly, for restaurants to implement. It is worrisome that that we have people that are making legislation that will negatively affect our service industries that obviously have no knowledge of how service industries actually operate. This will essentially require employers of the service industry and restaurants to guarantee the schedule of individuals 14 days in advance. Now that's simply not practical in a restaurant industry. I've worked in the restaurant industry and I've managed in the restaurant industry, and that is, it's ludicrous that anybody thinks that could actually be done. It also, employees would have to be paid a full hour's wage for any time added to a shift and 2 full hours wages for any time subtracted from a shift. If anybody's ever worked in the restaurant industry, you know that you put people on the schedule to work those unknown busy hours, and then they're done. It's a short shift. That's how you get started in the industry, and that's how I got started in the industry as well. Simply sending workers home or whatnot, or simply shutting down could be the result. I mean, actually laying off of workers could be the actual result of this kind of policy. Overtime pay would be mandated for any hours an employee works within 12 hours of the last shift. In other words, there are no long hours as far as more than 12 hours in a given day. None of these are practical when it comes to how you actually operate a restaurant. This is just one example of some of the things that we're going to have to be dealing with. And bottom line is, it's going to affect the employment of those that are in the industry, and it's going to affect our bottom line when we go to visit these restaurants, because those restaurateurs are going to have to pay just that much more for their wages and for employees. And that will be translated over to what we can actually sustain on, or from our own pocketbooks to pay for those meals. You thought your Happy Meals were expensive. Now they will get more expensive. So that and across the board. So many things that the three of us will be bird dogging for our citizens here in Fremont County and fighting against in particular situations, mostly I would imagine, and maybe the occasional thing we get to fight for. So just take note of that and keep paying attention to what's going on in Denver with our legislature. Now is the time in our agenda for citizens who wish to address the commissioners on a matter that's not scheduled on the agenda. Do we have anyone in our audience that wishes to address the commissioners? Seeing none, we'll move on in our agenda. There is no old business today, so we'll move on to new business. Item number 1 is the request for the issuance of a tasting permit for Lincoln Park Liquor, Inc., doing business as Waterhole Number 1, retail liquor store located at 1532 Elm Avenue, Canyon City. Representative is Angela Cecil. Welcome. Please turn that mic on and
No, push the button again.
push that button.
There you go.
There you are.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Go ahead and present to us what you have proposed here.
I would like to conduct tastings inside my store, on a schedule, of course, but have some of my consumers be able to try some whiskeys or wines or things like that, to essentially, hopefully, get them out of their comfort zone and maybe get them to try something they wouldn't otherwise.
Okay. And I was trying to remember from the application, that was, you're applying this for the Fridays,
Yes.
for all the Fridays through 2023, with the intention of possibly doing it on Friday, all the Fridays, but not
Yes.
necessarily all the Fridays.
Probably not, but just in case.
Gotcha. Okay.
Fridays from 4:30 to 6 p.m.
Yes.
Just let people know when they can show up and
Yes.
taste something.
And this is our second application of such
Is it?
for tastings, and so we
Yeah.
look forward to
It was
seeing
actually
more
our
of these.
first, but you had to cancel
Oh,
because you were
that's
out of
right.
town or something, so we approved one last meeting, but yeah, second one.
Right. Any questions?
Sure. I just would like to discuss real quickly. I'm certain that you know the laws of the state of Colorado when it comes to serving alcohol. So can you talk just a little bit about certification of the people that you work with, as well as for yourself? And how do we know that they have all been trained in the appropriate checking of IDs to check ages and such?
So my staff attend any and all meetings the city puts on for liquor enforcement. However, also until we're all on the same page, my distributors are actually gonna come in and do the tastings for us. They're gonna teach us kind of how it works, what it looks like, what to expect, and then go from there.
Okay.
So obviously you are aware that you must be trained
Yes.
and actually certified to be able to
Yes.
offer this. All right, thank you. That's all from me, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
We got one question. Sure. In your application, it says that each customer will receive an allotted number of sample cups. Once their cups are gone, no more samples will be served. What is that allotted number of?
I talked to my distributors about it. I want to say it's an ounce per sample, and then I think they're allotted 2. Anything after that, because we're assuming they're driving home. So you can pick 2 of whatever it is I'm offering that day, and then that's it. So each customer would get their cups, or however we'd serve them, and then once they're done, they're done.
So it's not,
You can't bring a water bottle.
It's a little more than an ounce,
Not
right?
unlimited. Yeah.
okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Go to a staff report. Talia.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So the clerk's office sees no conflicts with the issuance of a tasting permit. We've been provided with all the necessary documentation, and it's been reviewed by the county attorney. I want to note that their liquor license expires on May 8th of 2023, and their renewal application is due by March 16th. At which point, given this is approved and they want to continue conducting tastings, they will be required to renew that tasting application and pay an additional $100 fee.
So under these circumstances, are we approving technically just for the Fridays up through the expiration of this license or through 2023?
Up to the expiration of this license
Okay.
on May 8th.
It becomes a renewal after that point,
Okay.
as opposed to a new application. It would just go through the normal renewal process.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments or questions?
I do have one comment / question, Mr. Chair. On her application, she does ask the question, can I set up a tasting area on an outside grassy area, or does the consumption need to take place inside of the building? So I believe that we had this discussion, and the map that you provided to us shows it taking place indoors. And so at this point in time, you would be restricted to
That
indoors.
is correct, yes. The May 8th expiration of my license, when I do my renewal, I also will put in a potential extension of where I'm permitted to sell, and then we'd look at what that looks like then. But for now, it's just within the parameter of the map that I submitted.
Okay, and I would just urge you, Angela, to be aware that if you choose to try to license some outdoors, that there will be fencing requirements and some other things as well.
Sure.
So, all right, thank you.
Anything else?
No, I have a motion if you're ready.
Please.
I move to approve the issuance of a tasting permit for Lincoln Park Liquor Incorporated, doing business as Waterhole Number 1, located at 1532 Elm Avenue, for tastings through May.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner McFall?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Congratulations.
Good luck. We hope things go well for you.
At this time, we will have Mr. Kyle Logan from Logan and Associates, who will give a, I think I stated it incorrectly to you before the meeting, sir. It's not an hour and a half that you have to present. It's actually 2.5 hours.
Oh, is
that
that
you have,
right? Okay.
allotted to you.
Well, let me just start reading word for word then.
And this is a presentation of our 2021 Fremont County financial statements and management letter. So, Mr. Logan, please.
Okay.
I'll be back in an hour.
Well, thank you. So, yeah, my name is Kyle Logan. I'm the owner of Logan and Associates, the county's independent auditors. And so I'm here today to present the results of our audit of the county's 2021 financial statements and single audit. And so our audit was primarily in 2 phases. The first phase was in January, about a year ago, where we came out and did a lot of preliminary work. That's where we look at the county's internal controls and do testing. Also went over to the Department of Human Services and did our single audit testing there, because this in 2021 we were required to test the TANF program and the foster care program. And so that was primarily the bulk of our testing as required by the single audit standards. So then after the first phase, the second phase was, we started about the middle of April. And that's where we primarily concentrated on the year-end account balances for the funds, following up with some questions that we had during the preliminary work. Also in that process, you know, we send out third-party confirmations, primarily to the financial institutions, to the state agencies, to either confirm, you know, balances of cash and investments, as well as certain revenues that the county received throughout the year. And then also we do a lot of detail testing and analytical testing of account balances, you know, comparing 2021 with 2020, in order to give me a level of comfort in order to issue an opinion on the financial statements. And so following the table of contents is the independent auditor's report. And so for 2021, it's a new format, which I like better because what it does, it moves the opinion paragraph to the very front. Before, it was on the second or third page, and so I really like this new format. It, basically gets to what you're looking for right away. So for the year ended December 31st, 2021, the county received an unmodified opinion. What that means in layman's terms, that's a clean opinion. What that tells you as the commissioners of the county is that all the numbers in this document, all the footnote disclosures in this document are fairly stated and materially correct as of December 31st, 2021. So that's the best that you can receive from an independent audit, okay? And then also what was added on the second page of the independent auditor's report, a little more detail on our responsibilities as your auditors, and then also at the bottom of the first page, the county's responsibilities and county management. So then the last part of the independent auditor's report is where we refer to the single audit section and the related opinions there. So then following the independent auditor's report, we get into management's discussion and analysis. And this is primarily a written narrative comparing 2021 with 2020 at a high level and, describing why things changed between the years. And so that, again, is required by the accounting standards to be included. And then following the MD&A, we get into the financial statements. And so the pages 1 and 2, the statement of net position and statement of activities, these are the reporting of all the county's funds on accrual basis of accounting, which is similar to how a business or a corporation would report. Because primarily throughout the year, and your accounting system reports on modified accrual basis, which is very similar to your budgetary basis and pretty much similar to a cash basis throughout the year. And then at the end of the year, we pull in all the capital assets that are owned by the county and then also the long-term debt related to those assets. And so that's what's reported on page 1. So again, statement of net position, this is like a snapshot picture at December 31st of all the county's assets, all the claims against those assets or liabilities, and the net position or net worth of the county. So your total assets ended up at about $79.5 million. That's about a $12 million increase over prior year, which is about an 18% increase. And of that, 3 primary categories are your cash and investments at $31.7 million. Again, that makes up the majority of your increase over prior year. And that also makes up about 40% of your total assets, okay? Your property taxes that are levied for collection in 2022, $6.8 million. That's about 9% of your total assets. And then your capital assets at $36.7 million. Again, that's about 46% of your capital assets, or your total assets. So again, the majority of the increase is in your cash and investments, which I'll kind of address as we go why we had that increase, okay? The next section, total liabilities, this is about $30.6 million, which is an increase of about $4 million. And of that, the significant change there is the unearned revenues. And that's primarily the ARPA money that the county received in 2021, but you didn't spend all of it, okay? And so that's one of the reasons for our increase in cash, because you got that money sitting there in the bank that you haven't spent, okay? And so the unearned revenues makes up about 21%, that's $6.5 million of your total liabilities. And then also your long-term debt makes up about 67% at $20.6 million. In 2021, we refinanced the 2013 COPS, okay, or certificates of participation. So And what happened there, as a result of that refinancing, the county received what we call a net present value savings of interest of about $3.5 million. So you were able to, take advantage of lower rates. And so the remaining payout of the debt did not change from the previous issue. It just lowered your interest rate. So in today's dollars, that's the amount of savings, okay? And then the deferred property taxes, there, again, that's the taxes that are levied for collection in 2022. And that kind of covers the total liabilities. Then the bottom section, net position or net worth of the county, $41.7 million, which is about a $6.7 million dollar increase over last year, or about a 19% increase in your. So we have assets is net of the related debt for acquiring those assets of $16 million. And then we have the restricted at $8.2 million. Well, a lot of that is related to the debt service required reserves, and all that is reported in the sales and use tax fund, okay? And then finally, the unrestricted amount, no strings attached to this, at $17.5 million. Again, that's about a $5 million increase over last year. And so if we were to look at that in terms of the total expenses reported on page 2, the county basically had about 5 to 6 months of operations in your unrestricted. So that tells you, whatever reason you weren't receiving the property taxes, you weren't receiving sales taxes, you could sustain for about half a year, okay? So then the next page, page 2, this is a statement of activities or income statement. And so it starts out there on the left side with total expenses at about $38.5 million, which is very comparable to 2022. So not a big change in your expenses. The general government at $8.8 million, this is about $2.3 million decrease, and primarily because in 2020 we had the coronavirus money that came through and was passed through, okay? Health and welfare, $8.7 million. That's a slight decrease of a little over $300,000 from prior years, so very comparable. Public safety, $12.9 million, slight increase of about $700,000. And then highways and streets, again, another increase at $5.2 million of about $500,000, and that's related to projects going on. So then after the expenses in the middle section there, we have program revenues. And these are revenues that directly relate to one of our departments. And so we have charges for services, which is about $4.1 million, slight decrease over last year. Operating grants at $13.7 million, which again is a slight decrease over 2020. And then the capital grants, which is your conservation trust fund money, or the lottery monies, okay, at $223,000. So you can see over there on the right-hand side, the numbers that are in brackets, looking like negative numbers. Well, what that tells you is that your program revenues are not enough to cover the cost of the different departments. And so that's why we have the general revenue section. And again, that's primarily your property taxes and your sales and use taxes. Okay, so general revenues, $27.2 million, about a $3.7 million increase over last year. And the majority of that is in your sales and use taxes. And so again, as you know, 2021 may kind of be an anomaly. We'll see how 2022, when the final December numbers come out. But the other thing too, people were staying home, people started buying online, and now we also have the effects of inflation. So I would think that we might see a comparable amount of sales tax again this year, okay? And then at the very bottom ends up your change in net position or your net income for the year, which I mentioned earlier, 6.7 million. Again, 19% increase in net position. So that's good. You know, I've been doing your audit for several years, and each year it seems to get better and better. So, you know, there's a lot of factors there. You know, staff being conscious of spending, and you three guiding the county, you know, in the budgeting process. So that's good. I don't always see that with all my local government clients, so. Okay, so then we get into what's called the fund financial statements, and this is closer to what you're used to seeing throughout the year, you know, on a budgetary basis, and it shows all the specific funds. And we list 4 funds there separately because those are considered major funds. The general, transportation, human services, and sales and use fund. Now in the general, we do collapse several smaller funds that don't meet the requirements of the accounting standards for reporting separately. And so that's the sheriff's, the waste disposal, capital expenditures, public building maintenance, the PILT fund, and clerk and recorder, and then the 2 new ones, the Fair Board and the Livestock Commission funds. So those are all included in the general fund reporting. And then that column near the right, other governmental funds. So these are the smaller funds, and those are actually detailed out back in pages 34 and 35, where we do a combining statement for the balance sheet. And so really, the highlights I'll bring up is in the general fund, because that's your main operating fund of the county. Okay? And so your total assets are $24.6 million. Again, that's about an $8.9 million increase over last year, about a 57% increase. Majority of that is the unspent ARPA money, combined with the net income of about $3.7 million in the general fund as a result of your sales taxes. Okay? Your liabilities are about $6.5 million, which is an increase of $4.4 million. Again, the unspent ARPA money. Then we get down to fund balance or net worth of the general fund, $13.3 million, about a 41% increase over last year, $3.9 million. And of that, 91% of it, or $12.2 million, is unassigned, meaning no strings attached to it. And so, again, similar to what I mentioned on page 1, is that we have about 6 months of operations in the general fund. But that also, in that calculation, that also included over $4 million of capital outlay or capital asset purchases, which that fluctuates from year to year. So actually, you would have probably significant more months as far as operations. Okay? Total fund balance for all funds, $27.2 million, about a 28% increase over last year. And then the next page, page 4, statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. This is primarily your income statement. Similar format as far as fund presentation as the previous page. Your total revenues, $45.2 million, which is about $2.8 million increase over last year. The taxes line, this includes, you know, sales and use taxes, property taxes, lodging taxes. It's all the taxes that the county receives. $24.7 million, again, about a $3.4 million increase over prior year. Your total expenditures are $39.2 million, which is a slight decrease over 2020 by about $400,000. So things are pretty comparable. And then the next section, other financing sources and uses, they're about 2/3 down the page. This is where we show the transactions related to the COPS refinancing. And so you can see there, you issued $11,680,000. A couple lines down, you also had a $2.2 million debt premium with the issuance. And so, you know, the total amount of money for that was about 13.9 million, which was used to pay off the old cops at 13.6 million, okay? And so pretty similar. You also had about 1.5 million of what we call new money for the, you know, the county projects that are going on. So again, that's pretty good that you were able to also include new money in this issuance, and you really didn't change your debt structure much, okay? So again, that kind of covers the significant areas on the income statement or statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. The next page, page 5, this is primarily a reconciliation from page 4 to page 2. As I mentioned before, pages 1 and 2 include your capital assets and the long-term debt, whereas pages 3 and 4 do not. So it puts those on there as they affect the income statement between the two methods. Following page 5 is page 6. So this is your fiduciary funds statement of net position. The county has these fiduciary funds that are purely in a custodial capacity. You basically are like the funnel through of the monies. And so the details of this information is back on pages 44 and 45, where we show there's 4 categories: public trustee, county treasurer, the inmate commissary fund, and then a little bit of fire and EMS. And again, these are reported this way because the county has no access to these funds. These are purely passed through, okay? So, so that kind of covers the financial statements. Before we get into the footnotes, footnotes are the bulk of the report, pages 7 through 29. And again, the accounting standards require certain information to either be explained more in detail or just to support some of the numbers that are up on the financial statements on pages 1 through 6. And so we start out with the significant accounting policies, and that's the bulk of the footnotes, pages 7 through 16. Again, a lot of this is required reporting of how the county tracks its revenues and expenditures and accounts for them. Then on pages 16 and 17, this is a budgetary footnote, which shows there on page 17 the funds that were amended during the year. And then we get into the cash and investments footnote, pages 17 through 21, which explains and shows where all the money that the county has is being reported. Also talks about the restrictions, which are primarily related to the debt reserve requirements for the COPS. Okay. Pages 22 through 23 schedules out the interfund transfers between the funds, and also the interfund balances, or what we call due to, due froms. And again, that's the interfund balances, that's more of a timing issue. You know, at the end of the year, certain funds owe other funds, and then it's, you know, it's cleared up and made whole in the following months. Page 24, this is a capital assets table. And so as you can see there, you know, the construction in progress line of 3.6 million, well, that's primarily the Pathfinder Park Community Center, because it wasn't fully completed at the end of the year. And so it's reported there. In 2022, it will be pulled down into one of the lines, probably in buildings, to be depreciated out. In the buildings, the significant amount there was the Justice Center remodel. And then also in the infrastructure, that's primarily your ongoing budgeted chip and seal projects, because you're improving streets and roads. And then we had a little bit of just, you know, every year you guys are rotating vehicles from your various departments. Primarily the sheriff's department is the biggest department that rotates vehicles through their use. So following on pages 25 and 26, this is explanation of your long-term debt. So you can see on that table there, the refinancing of the 2013 COPS with the issuance of the 2021 COPS. And then on page 26, there's the debt service table. And as you can see, you're done with your debt in about 2038, so about 15 to 16 years, okay? And I believe the 2016 COPS are paid off this year in 2023. So debt requirements will go down at that point. Following on pages 27 and 28, this talks about the retirement plans, the health insurance offered to employees of the county. Also talks about your risk management and your participation there in the pool. On page 29, we mentioned the E911 authority and how it relates to the county and why it isn't included in the county's financials. We have a little information there on the TABOR requirements. And then the last footnote there, which hopefully that'll go away here for 2022, reporting as a coronavirus pandemic. It was recommended that stayed in for one more year, so. Okay, so that covers the footnotes, and then following, we get into the budgetary comparison statements. You know, so each year when you approve and adopt the budget for the next year in December, one thing by state statute is you're not allowed to spend more than you expect or more than you budget. And so that's part of our process. We go through each fund to make sure the schedules, you know, show each of the individual budgets for the funds. And then, as I mentioned earlier, pages 34 to 43, that's the combining and individual funds. So there's those 8 smaller funds that don't meet the requirements to report up at the front of the financials. And so we combine all that information together. And then as I mentioned on pages 44 to 45, this is that combining statement of net position. And so you can see the money that's coming in and out related to these 4 categories. So you can see how much money's flowing through the treasurer's office throughout the year. Okay. So then we get into the next part of the audit, which is a single audit. Okay. And so they're starting on page 46. We have the independent auditor's report on internal control and compliance over the financial statements. And so primarily that's, we issue that in relation to the work on the single audit, but it really concentrates on everything I just went through. So if we had issues, that would be disclosed here. We did not have anything of concern that would cause us to change our opinion, okay? Then following on this report, we get into the independent auditor's report for compliance over each major federal program. And so as I mentioned before, you know, we tested the TANF program and the foster care program. And so again, in our testing, we were able to satisfy ourselves and issue an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion. So that's good. And then on pages 53 through 55 is a schedule of expenditures of federal awards and the related footnotes. So you can see there, bottom of page 54, total federal money spent by the county is about $6.7 million for 2021, okay? And so again, we're required to test a certain percentage of that. We're also, if a certain program hasn't been tested, that's for a couple of years. That's why we TANF and foster care, because it had been 2 years previous when we tested those. and they're considered significant and major. Okay? So each year, we really rely on the county staff for helping us put this together, because especially with all your various departments and each of them receiving funding from different either state agencies, federal agencies, or other agencies. So I really appreciate the staff's help on that, because I couldn't do it by myself. So. And then finally, at the very end, is the local highway finance report. Again, we auditors aren't big fans of this because no two clients do it the same way. So, but because the county receives the highway users tax fund monies, it's required to be included in the financials. Okay, and again, we had no issues when we went through the schedule and audited it, so that's a good thing. So, before I talk about the management letter, any questions on the financials? I know I kind of breezed through that. And if you don't have any today and you do come up with some, let Sean know. He can get in contact with me and we'll find an answer.
I was gonna just say, I enjoyed that so much, let's just have him do it again. And then we can- You wanna just do it all again? I didn't catch most of that.
Is that right? Okay. How about I make copies of my notes and give them to you?
No, that was wonderful. Please, Commissioner
I do
Bell.
have one quick question. You mentioned a couple of times that Fremont County currently has about 6 months' worth of operating expenses in reserve. I'm curious to know if that's pretty typical with other county governments that you work with, if it's in a better position, if it's not quite where we should be?
That's kind of a loaded question.
is,
Because it's
yeah.
hard to, because it's hard to say. What is the perfect amount, the perfect time frame? Because, every county, even though they're very similar, they have, in some cases, different programs and things and different departments. So, but the other thing too is I look at you three and say, okay, well, what are you comfortable with? 6 months, that's pretty good. Because you think about it, your sales taxes, when you receive them from the state, you're a 2-month lag. So the sales taxes that you physically receive in February are actually what was collected in December. Okay? And so I think, having been the county's auditor for several years, I think that's a fairly comfortable spot to be in. Because the thing is, you have enough there to sustain the operations without having to go into debt to fund that. I don't know if that answers your question.
Good enough. Thank you. You don't want to step out on a limb, so I understand.
Well, we got to, yeah, because then next year you're, yeah, anyway. But no, it is. It's again, what are you comfortable with? What is the county manager? What is the finance director comfortable with? And then, again, if all of a sudden your major funding sources dried up, well, I think we got bigger issues than that, so.
Appreciate that, because I know those are conversations that I've had with Mr. Sutton since he came on board, and, as far as what our
Right.
reserve is there, and I know these two have talked about that in plenty since before I got here, so it's always a concern, and up at the state level, what the reserves are, we're always looking at what happens with the emergency, and everybody's emergencies are gonna be potentially different, and
Right.
yeah, so I appreciate that answer, actually, the comfort level aspect of, what do we think we need to make this happen? And I'm glad, and I'm appreciative of all the hard work from our staff over the years to get us in a position where we actually have 6 months in reserve. That's a good position, I think, for us to be in, so
Yeah.
thank you for that. And
Sure.
I got just a couple quick comments. One, you brought it up, there at the end, but the staff. I know they're very valuable in helping you get this information together. And so I want to thank all the staff for doing that and letting you come in and tear their stuff up there so you could find what you needed. So I appreciate that. There's two things you said that I really, really like hearing, and we've heard this before, but the unmodified opinion. And when you hear that, you just kind of take a deep breath and go on. And looking through this morning before the meeting, I understand it, but as you go through it and explain it to us just now, it brings some of it back to what page means what, and I appreciate that. And then the last thing was, quote, if we'd have had issues, they would have been here, quote, we did not. So that's a good thing also of gathering all this information and putting this together and compiling it. And I think the shape that we're in the county is good. I agree. It's good to have that comfort feeling. We don't want that emergency to happen where we have to drain those funds, but we're continuously looking at that as well so that we can keep our heads above water all the time. So these always help. We've had a big discussion last weekend about audits and how important they are moving forward, and this just shows that, I think. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir. The letter.
Okay, so this is what I refer to as a management letter. So our professional standards require us to communicate certain things to you, the governing board of the county. It talks about our responsibility as your auditors. You know, it talks about if we had any issues during the audit that would cause us to change our opinions on the financial statements. You know, we had none. If we would have, you would have heard from me before today. So that's always a good thing. You know, it also is a tool for providing information on, you know, areas, because there's so many different departments at the county and we test certain things. And if we come up with issues or either, you know, room for improvement or best practices, that's what we'll put in here. Okay? And so, you know, we do have a few comments. The Department of Health, I know we've had some turnover in staff over the past couple of years, and I think some of the tracking of the grants maybe fell through the cracks. And so when we first came out here, we were having trouble getting, you know, good numbers because the grant information was being tracked, but it wasn't being reconciled back to the accounting records for that fund. And so I know the finance department, when Sonny was still here, they actually went through that and got the accounting records to a point where we felt comfortable, okay? And so our recommendation, you know, we'll follow up with it next year's audit, is to make sure that that is being done, because that, especially when you're dealing with grants, that way you're not shorting yourself and not requesting reimbursements for expenses that you're incurring that are covered by those. So again, they weren't significant enough that would cause me to change my opinion on the financials, but it's something that we feel should be looked at, okay? The next section, this, I brought it up again. You know, last year, and even I think in 2019, we were looking at the inmate commissaries fund at the sheriff's office, you know, and I know there's a third-party vendor that is kind of taking care of that, which doesn't allow the county much control over managing the system. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not. But the main thing is to make sure that the money that the county is receiving from this third-party vendor is the amount you should be getting, okay? So again, I think that kind of fell through the cracks as far as following it up. Again, we will look into it when we're doing the 2022 audit and see where that stands. And the one thing, you know, that during 2019, we brought it up about moving the inmates' accounts over to the treasurer. That was done. Well, that's part of it. The next piece is say, okay, yeah, the treasurer is tracking it, but is anybody over there comparing with what they think it should be to what the treasurer shows? So making sure that that reconciliation is happening. And, you know, ideally, monthly would be the best, because that way if something's off, it's easier to find as opposed to waiting 3 months, 6 months down the line, okay? Again, not significant enough for us to change our opinion on the financials. And then the last part, not the IT system. Each year, we have our IT consultants go through and look at things, systems of the county, primarily to help us and give us a level of comfort on internal controls. And I know we've talked about different things over the years, and you know, the county had the unfortunate incident in August with the cyber attack. However, I think as a result, you guys have made huge steps in addressing some of the comments that our IT consultant has had as far as cybersecurity and security. So really, it's unfortunate it happened. The results of it, I think, are really helping the county move forward from an IT environment standpoint and helping things. So, and then finally, you know, conclusion. I'll echo Commissioner McFall's comment. You know, I really want to thank the county staff for their help. And I know Sunny's moved on. She was a big part of this. And then Sean kind of got thrown into the fire. So really appreciate his help as far as getting through things, and Tammy and the people over at DHS, Kim, and just really everybody that helped get us to where we are today. So I really appreciate their help, because it makes my job a lot easier as far as going through this process. So, and that's all I have. So thank you.
Okay. Any further questions, comments?
Comments? Just a couple of quick comments on notes that I had taken. First, I just wanted to say the recommendations part of your management letter, I think you have seen in the past, we take those very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
We have made a lot of changes based on your recommendations. And
Yes,
so
you
I
have.
just want to say thank you for that. I know that we have made a lot of changes in the past. We still are working on some things, so you can anticipate continued changes in the future as well. And then the last note that I really have is, I think the 2021 audit was a much heavier lift than it normally is, simply because of the cyber attack. And so it put us behind in pretty much every way, shape, and form that you can imagine. And yet you, Kyle, and our entire staff still did the work, still did that heavy lift. It took a lot longer than it normally does. But I just want to also add my thanks, not only to you, but to our entire county staff as well.
Yeah.
And end with the happy note that Mr. Sutton is still with us. So we
Yes.
have not managed to frighten him away yet. So we're very grateful for that. And Mr. Chair, I do have a motion when you're ready.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and do the motion? We can put any further comments.
Sure. Mr. Chair, I move to accept the 2021 Fremont County financial statements and management letter from Logan and Associates LLC.
Okay.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any further comments? I would, do you have any?
Nope.
Commissioner? I would just add again, and I've mentioned this many times before, whether it's during our budgets or prior audits and meeting with you, and again, echo the sentiments on our staff and all the great work they've done. This being an audit on 2021, that was my first year here, and I think this is probably maybe the last year I get to do this with, because there's no credit of mine, certainly, to be able to attach to this. So I would like to offer the kudos to my colleagues and to the staff for the great work and the great foundations that they've laid to get us to a point where we're going to have a great audit like this. So I appreciate your work and our staff's, Sunny, who's not here, and our current staff who's been able to get us through this. And again, I would echo Commissioner Bell's comments on the recommendations. We do appreciate that, and
Sure.
We do take those seriously and look forward to implementing as much as quickly as we can. So thank you for that, and thank you for the good report.
Sure.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Commissioner McFall?
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kyle.
You bet.
Well, now that we have another 2 hours or hour and a half left of his time,
You know, the room's just full of people that were riveted with that information and the millions online.
Millions online.
It is actually a lot of information, but it's pretty exciting to hear about it.
well, I asked him to
especially when
start
you're
over
doing
from the
well, so-
beginning, but
Yeah, it's good.
item number 3, airport lease for a new hangar with Alpine Depot LLC. Our airport manager, Wes Brandt, is here to speak to this. So, Mr. Brandt. Morning.
Morning.
Turn on the microphone. Thank you.
You take it.
So Alpine Depot LLC has requested a land lease at the airport to build an 80-foot by 80-foot aircraft hangar. Our airport consultants prepared a hangar layout plan. The layout plan was reviewed and approved by the Airport Advisory Board. And I think it's a great opportunity for the airport and the county for this hangar to be built at the airport. So I would recommend that we approve this lease for Alpine Depot.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Just a comment that, as always, Mr. Chair, our county attorney has taken the time to look at this lease and to ensure that everything in it is appropriate and correct. And as always, we thank her for that work.
Thank you for that. And thank you for that.
I just have one question, and I think I might have asked you this before, Wes, but this drainage project that we're about to embark on out there was all taken into consideration with this hangar as well, right?
It was, yes.
And I'm just looking at the drawing from Armstrong on this. And obviously what's before us today is just the lease, the land lease, the underlying land lease for this.
Right.
But we're looking at a total over time of how many additional hangars?
So it looks like we can, it depends on the type of hangars, but looks like we can get this hangar and another large hangar, and then maybe 3 or 4 smaller hangars.
Smaller hangars? Okay.
In that area.
And he's looking at doing this in phases over time?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments or a motion?
I have a motion if you're ready.
Sir?
I move to approve the lease for a new hangar with Alpine Depot LLC. It is for a 25-year lease, starting today, ending January 23rd, 2048.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Commissioner McFall?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Wes.
Thanks,
All right,
Wes.
thank you.
Thanks.
Much appreciated. At this point, we have an appointment of a new member to the Fair Board with the term expiring December 31, 2025. Commissioner McFall.
We have out there on our website right now a link where if you're interested in serving on the Fair Board or the Fair Sales Committee, there are some positions open. And what requires a letter of interest and a little bit of your background. And we received a letter from a very enthusiastic person that is interested in serving on the Fair Board. She's a leader of a 4-H club or a co-leader of a 4-H club and interested in furthering the education of our youth, which is what 4-H is all about. And she wants to help improve the Fremont County Fair. So it's exciting to have somebody come in and try to get community participation as well as encourage the children and try to grow the 4-H program. It's been an important part of my life, and I think all of ours. So it's great to see that happening. So we have a person that's interested, and I'll just make the motion that we appoint Amanda Fouch as a new member of the Fair Board with a term expiring in December 31st, 2025.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any further comments?
I'm pretty sure Commissioner McFall said it all. We are very grateful, though, for those who do volunteer for all of our mini boards, and it's exciting to get new voices and a lot of new enthusiasm on these boards.
And there are some available, like I said, fremontco.com under the volunteer tab, or how may I or something tab, volunteer boards. Click on that and send in your application.
Ditto. Roll call, please.
Commissioner McFall?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Excellent. Last item on our agenda. Thank you for your patience, Emmy. It's your turn. We have the Royal Gorge Chamber Alliance requesting the issuance of a special events permit for events located 6655 Highway 115 Florence on both February 17 and March 9 of 2023 from 5 to 9 p.m. Ms.
Yes, sir.
Dennehy, please.
Yes, well, the first event is our annual banquet, so we would love to see y'all attend. It's our chance to give some inspiration to our members, recognize some citizens within our community, and have a good time. It's just a
Very
time
good.
to gather, which we enjoy, bring our community together, and
Okay.
yeah. And then in March, we are going to do our business after hours a little different. We're going to make it a small business expo. So for some of our businesses that aren't big enough to host a business after hours, or those that do not have a brick and mortar but offer a service, it'll be their opportunity to showcase their business, and again, with other business and members, and that to really showcase who they are, what they have to offer, and some of our behind-the-scenes people are going to participate in this, maybe show us services that we don't know that they have. We just had one come in that he would be a prime example, that Booties, not to remember, it's Dale Booty.
Oh,
He has the
design.
booty-
Engineering and
Design and
design.
engineering, yeah.
and design, thank you. I was like going, okay, what's the rest of it? But he came in and blew us away. He showed us what he does, and it's amazing. With his 3D printing and stuff, and so we're there, and you know, guys, Chris is into farming. She has her stuff, and she's like, well, we have this old farm piece, and we cannot find it. And he goes, I can replicate it. Didn't know he could do that. He showed us pieces like that he has done on old vehicles and that. So it's a chance for us to really get some of our small businesses out and exposed, because he's behind the scenes. They don't make that part anymore. He may be able to make it for you, which is awesome. So we're excited. So it's, again, a chance to get our businesses out together, to communicate with one another of what we do. And so we're just
Excellent.
excited to have a good time.
Great. Any questions?
That's a great idea. That's pretty amazing. Whoever came up with that,
So that
kudos
was
to
one of
them.
my first brainchild things
Yeah,
that I want to
that's
do.
that's a
We need
great
to
idea.
do this, so it's excited.
Because I
we're
think there's some chamber members that a lot of them fall into that category, and to be able to show their stuff like that. And I just want to point out, you put the address, but this is a Pathfinder Park Event Center. So we
Yes.
also appreciate you guys using that facility for
We
this.
are excited for this facility. It opens up a lot of doors for our community to get together and have an area that we can utilize differently. I love our other event centers, but this is neat because we can personalize it a little bit more, so.
Gotcha.
Awesome.
Good. Good to hear.
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
As always, I will ask you about training and certification for anyone who may be serving alcohol at these events.
Well, Thunder Road has graciously, just for annual banquet, will provide all our servers.
Okay.
And they're gonna do that part for us. So they have all been through the training, of course, and with their distributors and that. Of course, Linda and I have both went through that training also, so we have both have our certificates through the city.
So you will be in charge then on March 9th for the business after hours there?
Yes, ma'am, we will do that. We don't have anybody who's so gracious to volunteer that night, but usually it's our ambassadors in that. Linda Larson is usually the one who is back there kind of managing that area. What's gonna be also fun about that is we'll have our food trucks and stuff there also, so plenty of food.
All right, thank you.
Anything else? I have a report from staff.
Yes. The clerk's office sees no issues with the Chamber Alliance's application. We've been provided with all the necessary documentation. It was also reviewed by the county attorney, and FCD, PHE, and the sheriff's office do recommend approval.
Okay. I notice on the map of the building, I think it's page 2 of our report here, there's a potential exterior area.
Only because we're going to have, we invited food trucks to come in
Gotcha.
and do their part. So you always have those that want to go and check out the food trucks. So we just didn't want to make it more of a hassle. We're not going to encourage people to take their drinks out, but just so we're covered. The liability is covered, so.
And it will be fenced.
And it will be fenced, yes, sir.
Okay.
And we will have our signs out.
It might be kind of cool to go sit outside and enjoy food and
And
drinks.
that's, what's neat about that is since it's a small business expo, they're going to, usually Business After Hours has hors d'oeuvres or some type of food, they're going to be the ones supplying it. So it's a chance for us to enjoy them.
Great idea. Yes, thank you.
Fantastic. Anything else? Motion?
I have a motion.
Excellent.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the Royal Gorge Chamber Alliance issuance of a special events permit for events located at Pathfinder Park on February 17th as well as March 9th. Both events from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Second.
Has been moved and seconded. Any further comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Commissioner McFall?
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Good luck.
Good
Hope
luck.
things go well.
And if there is no further business, we are adjourned.